Minneapolis.
Good morning, Jon Justice. This is John Barron from Eden Prairie. I didn't know that Mondani from New York spoke for all Democrats. Do you speak for all Republicans?
No.
Very weird. So,
Wait, is that supposed to be an argument? Talking about Mondani requiring 2 IDs to get a shovel in the midst of a debate over voter ID and Democrats not wanting to require it? And your comeback on that is that Mondani doesn't speak for all Democrats. I didn't say that he did. But he has more to say.
pretty sad that the Supreme Court voted against the tariffs. They're illegal. But myself, John Barron here, I thought it was a good deal. So you have a good day, my boy.
Twin Cities News Talk, hour 2 for a Monday. My name is Jon Justice. In the master control booth is Sam. We'll talk with lawyer extraordinaire Jeff O'Brien in just a moment. Sam, am I missing some? Oh, is that what that was referring to?
Yeah, I just sent it to you. He's referencing the alleged C-SPAN call by a Mr. John Barron, who everybody assumes is President Trump, using his moniker. It's the same moniker that he used in the 80s when he dealt with New York journalists and things like that. So that makes more sense. So after the Supreme Court decision, C-SPAN got a call from a person named John Barron, who happened to sound exactly like President Trump.
Can you find that for me?
I'll look into it.
Yeah. No, find it for me and throw it on the button bar. Lawyer extraordinaire Jeff O'Brien. Did you hear that phone call? I have heard that phone call. Did you hear that phone call on the C-SPAN?
No, I've read about the phone call. I haven't heard the phone call. I've heard C-SPAN debunking it, saying impossible. It was him because apparently he was giving a speech or something or talking at the same time someplace. But
yeah, it's funny to me because when I listened to it, it seemed pretty clear that it was somebody that was just doing an impression. I mean, that would be the natural default. Mm-hmm. Why would the president need to hide his identity to call into C-SPAN? That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. But of course, because of the world that we live in, everybody goes the other way with it, going, oh, look, Trump's trying to pull one over on C-SPAN, which absolutely makes no logical sense whatsoever. Good morning, Jeff O'Brien.
Good morning.
What are your thoughts on tariffs, though? Because as foe of the show Phil said in the talk back here on Twin Cities News Talk, brought to you by Lindahl Realty, he said it's pretty sad the Supreme Court's voted against the tariffs. They're illegal. What actually transpired in all this? I have the details in front of you, but we'll just go right to you this morning.
Yeah, it's not as simple as that. What the Supreme Court ruled was this IEEPA, this one particular law that where the president had been using it to declare an emergency because of a trade deficit and then imposing tariffs, that he couldn't do that. And they said he couldn't do that because it didn't reference the word tariff. And as Justice Kavanaugh says in his dissent, and I think his is a very good read, his dissent, he said basically he checked the wrong box because he cites a number of other statutes where it explicitly gives the president the authority to impose tariffs, which the president then turned around and started doing.
Right.
And so, right away that I saw like Gavin Newsom was posting about refunds and all this stuff. And Kavanaugh mentioned that in his dissent this is going to be a mess because we don't even discuss how they're going to do refunds. This issue of refunding what's been collected is going to be tied up in the courts for some time because, you have to have damages in court to the extent that the plaintiffs who are these companies that had to collect the tariffs or paid the tariffs, if they pass those costs on to the consumer, I don't know how they're damaged, and that's going to be an issue. And by the time it all gets sorted out, he'll have collected just as much revenue probably under the statutes that they allow. So, from a statutory interpretation standpoint, I think it was the right ruling that if you have three other statutes that give him the authority to impose tariffs, and one that doesn't exactly say those words, you can infer from that he probably doesn't have those powers under that statute. But he can go even further than tariffs under that statute. Nobody disputes that he could impose an entire trade embargo against a country. So, I don't think it was any surprise from anyone that it was going to come down this way, especially after oral arguments when they seemed really skeptical of giving him tariff power under IEEPA.
So let's work through a bit of this because I have a couple of questions that popped up. So to back up a little bit, the ruling came on Friday. It was a 6-3 decision against Trump's use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which you mentioned. Trump became the first president to rely on the nearly 50-year-old statute for such broad import taxes. The court declined to address whether the previously corrected tariffs must be refunded. The Penn-Wharton budget model estimates the ruling could put as much as $175 billion in tariff revenue at risk, noting that importers typically have 180 days after goods are liquidated to file refund claims with the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. But as you just mentioned, this all could get locked up for a long time in terms of deciding whether or not we can actually recoup that money?
Yeah, they're going to have to make a showing of what they've lost and how they can get their to get their refund. So obviously the federal government is going to push back on that and make them show proof. So yeah, these everything takes time when it's in court.
Yeah. So let's get to a couple of comments by some Republican leaders. So Vice President J.D. Vance blasted the ruling as judicial overreach. He says this is lawlessness from the court, plain and simple, arguing the decision would make it harder for presidents to protect American industries and supply chains. That being said, though, as you mentioned, because Trump did move forward with other tariffs via a different mechanism, I mean, that would kind of push back on what J.D. Vance wrote. I guess I would ask you, what are your thoughts on J.D. Vance saying that this is lawlessness by the Supreme Court?
Well, these other statutes that allow for the tariffs to be imposed, as I understand it, there has to be some sort of a finding of a trade deficit, or there has to be a little bit more kind of due diligence done before they can be imposed, and can be some court challenge. And so the reason they went with IEEPA because it was fastest, right? And
okay, because that was my question: is why didn't they go?
Yeah, and
the other route that you mentioned and the way he's going now, why did they go this way to have it be challenged?
And I think the president's own words about the tariffs hurt him in terms of the argument with the court, because this was a big thing at oral argument: are they being used to raise revenue, or were they being used to negotiate these trade deals against countries where we had trade imbalances? When you're declaring an emergency because of a trade deficit, were you imposing them to try to even the playing field, versus were you trying to use them to raise revenue? And every time he goes out and brags about the revenue raised, that's cutting against the argument that these were being used for. I think had they not focused so much in the press about the revenue being raised, I think they might have had a chance to save this in front of the court, because the use of those tariffs that did lead to some of these deals with some of these countries in terms of some of the agreements on their side about reducing tariffs or investment in the country. So they kind of serve their purpose, and now I think he's just going to pivot to these other statutes to try to keep doing more deals. And there's some of these trade deals that they've negotiated. There's reciprocal tariffs negotiated into them. That's not going to affect anything. This ruling isn't going to affect these agreements that they've made with other countries. That's just part of a trade deal.
Yeah, Senate Majority Leader John Thune had a more cautious tone, emphasizing the tariffs remain a viable policy tool, said Senate Republicans would continue working with the administration and the House lawmakers to strengthen rural America, adding that Trump has a wide range of other tariff powers and he will use them to defend American workers. And so that's kind of a more even keel response from John Thune, even though he hasn't been the biggest fan of Republicans as of late.
Yeah, I think that initially on Friday morning, certainly on the Democrat side there was a lot of joy and kind of a victory lap of sorts. I mean, especially on social media. I think as the days have gone on over the weekend, I think people on both sides are kind of understanding that this ruling wasn't as significant as everybody thought it was going to be.
Yeah. It's kind of like every time the Democrats react about something that Trump
and we'll see, we'll see how they, if they're so glad that the Supreme Court upheld the Constitution. We'll see if the Supremes drop the Voting Rights Act case on racial gerrymandering this week. We'll see how much they like the Supreme. We'll be back to packing the court again and being in Trump's pocket if they go the wrong way on that for them on that one.
And let's talk a little bit about that coming up. If you have any questions for lawyer extraordinaire Jeff O'Brien, he's going to stick with us for another segment here on Twin Cities News Talk. We already have some talkbacks rolling in. So we'll take a quick break. As we do, this was, and we'll comment further on it on the other side, this was the C-SPAN call from Jon Barron that individuals were saying was President Donald Trump. You be the judge.
John in Virginia, Republican. Let's hear from you.
Well, this is Jon Barron, and this is the worst decision you've ever had in your life, practically. Jack.
Okay, let me stop here just really quick. Now hearing this again with the isolated audio, not watching the video, it's so not Trump. That's so not Trump.
Jack's going to agree with me, right? But this is a terrible decision, and you have Hakeem Jeffries, who he's a dope, and you have Chuck Schumer, who can't cook a cheeseburger. Of course these people are happy. But true Americans will not be happy. And you have the woman earlier, I assume she's a woman, she's a Democrat, but she said she's disgraced. She's devastated.
All right,
by
John.
this.
They have what's called a Trump derangement problem. Have you heard about it?
Crook and Chase Nashville chats with the true life adventures of hot new country star Hudson Westbrook.
Early in his career, he shocked his mom more than once, and we even shocked him on what we had to do to get to visit with him.
I've seen some people do some crazy things, but nothing like that.
Plus, what Hudson almost had in common with Billy Bob Thornton. Crook and Chase Nashville chats with Hudson Westbrook. Listen and subscribe on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Segregation in the day, integration at night.
When segregation was the law, one mysterious black club owner had his own rules.
We didn't worry about what went on outside. It was like stepping in another world.
Inside Charlie's Place, black and white people danced together. But not everyone was happy about it.
You saw the KKK?
Yeah, they was dressed up in their uniform.
The KKK set out to raid Charlie, take him away from here.
Charlie was an example of power. They had to crush him.
From Atlas Obscura, Rococo Punch, and Visit Myrtle Beach comes Charlie's Place. A story that was nearly lost to time. Until now. Listen to Charlie's Place on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everyone, it's Emily Simpson and Shane Simpson from the Legally Brunette podcast.
Each week, we're bringing you true crime through a legal lens.
Whether you want all the facts on the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, or you still need to wrap your head around the Diddy verdict, we're breaking it all down step by step.
And we're not just lawyers, we're also husband and wife. It makes for some pretty entertaining episodes.
Listen to Legally Brunette on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is the biggest night in podcasting.
The countdown is on to our 2026 iHeart Podcast Awards. Live from South by Southwest, March 16th, we'll honor the very best in podcasting from the past year and celebrate the most innovative talent and creators in the industry.
It's truly a who's who of the podcasting world.
Creativity, knowledge, and passion will all be on full display.
And the winner of the iHeart Podcast Award is...
See all the nominees now at iHeart.com/podcast awards.
Audible is a proud sponsor of the Audible Audio Pioneer Award. Explore the best selection of audiobooks, podcasts, and originals all in one easy app. Audible. There's more to imagine when you listen. Sign up for a free trial at audible.com.
That problem?
If people are getting their money back from tariffs, I would like to talk to T-Mobile. I have been a loyal customer for 30 years, and I pay twice as much as the new kids. So, I don't know, maybe I need a refund too.
That's one of the things that's something that, just apart from this, that's always bugged me, is when you see a company wanting more subscribers to their service, and then they offer these huge sweeping discounts, but I'm already a user. It's like, well, why why can't I get that for a year?
Mm-hmm.
I've already been using your services. Why can't I have half off for the year? It's just a minor complaint. Twin Cities News Talk. My name is Jon Justice. I'm glad you're with the show this morning. Lawyer extraordinaire Jeff O'Brien is in studio. Let's go here.
I would like to hear Jeff O'Brien's opinion on how this case actually made it to the Supreme Court in 6 months. And it was not an emergency case. Something very suspicious about this.
Is there anything suspicious? I'm always curious, too, because it seems like certain cases, I know sometimes they're emergency and they get fast-tracked, but other times it just seems like they just get fast-tracked. So
yeah, no, I don't think it was emergency, but I believe it went through the normal appeals process, and that's how it ended up there. So
okay. So
yeah.
It's not a huge surprise that the Supreme Court took it up as quickly as they did.
No. I mean, it was obviously a significant matter. They had to decide it. So yeah.
So President Donald Trump did end up issuing 15% new global tariffs despite the Supreme Court ruling. I have an article here from Fox 9, and we were talking about this a moment ago, simply asking the question if the new tariffs based off of a different rationale was legal. And so far we've seen that they are, unless they end up being challenged. Do you expect these new tariffs to be challenged?
They're more open to challenge. Generally, there's some procedures that have to be followed. So, there's going to be there's probably going to be some ticky-tack type of pushback on, you didn't do this or you didn't do that, or, so it may take it's not as, like I said, they weren't going to be as swift as what he was doing with IEEPA that was struck down. But again, if the goal was to get quick trade deals or trade relief from other countries, I think one day we'll probably find out they knew exactly what the risk was that it was going to get struck down, but they did it because it was going to be the quickest way to get some of these things resolved. So in their minds, I know the president was dissing on the Supremes and stuff, but in some ways they probably accomplished what they wanted to accomplish, and they can move on to doing it this way now.
And what was you mentioned the other ruling that you're anticipating to come down soon.
The last major ruling that we're waiting on, and there's going to be some more coming out probably tomorrow, is the case that they heard on the Voting Rights Act and creating the minority majority districts to ensure that there's minority representation in various states. And this basically comes down to, there's racially gerrymandered districts in some parts of the country, and it's done to make sure that there is, minority representation. And the Supremes were not, we always try to get the tone from oral argument.
Right.
It doesn't sound like they're going to come out with the same position as they did on affirmative action. That it served its purpose. It's time to go. The only question is, when are they going to come out with this decision? Is it going to come out soon enough where there's going to be action that states can take to redraw boundaries? Because the chatter is that if these districts are struck down, it could affect about 19 to 20 seats.
So would that be this year, or is this something?
That's the talk.
Okay.
If it comes out now, there may be a chance for states to redraw boundaries. If they sit on it until June, or they say something in the ruling that it wouldn't be effective
right.
for this round of elections, then it would just be effective next time. So that's kind of what the $64,000 question is. I think everybody knows what the decision is going to be. They're just waiting to see when it comes out and what impact it has for this year.
Talking with lawyer extraordinaire Jeff O'Brien. Now, I'm sure that others have made this correlation. I haven't seen it, so I'm just going to act like this is a fresh take. But I can't help but wonder if some of the hesitancy to move forward, depending on how the Senate Republicans do, that some of the hesitancy to move forward on the Save America Act might be because there's some anticipation that they're waiting for the Supreme Court ruling to come down, because that could be, I'm not saying that it should, but that could be a determination on whether or not Republicans decide which route they want to take with regard to the filibuster or the talking filibuster, and how they handle the Save America Act and voter ID, depending on whether or not the Supreme Court rules in favor.
It's very possible, John. I've even thought, the Republicans in Indiana got beat up pretty hard for not going along with Texas and redrawing their boundaries. And I have to, there was part of me that thought, well, maybe they're waiting until this decision drops, and then they're basically forced to go in and change boundaries, and then they can take care of it then.
Before we let you go this morning, I just want to touch upon two items. I've had these in my stack now for a while, and a little bit late to the party on a couple of these, but both from Alpha News. The first one is what Democrats aren't saying about their judicial warrant demands for ICE. Democrats are demanding federal agents obtain judicial warrants before arresting illegals on private property. And of course, this came out about a week and a half ago, so we were still sort of in the throes of the major Operation Metro Surge. This was a move that experts liken to a Trojan horse that would irreversibly weaken American immigration enforcement to come. The other issue, and we did talk about this briefly on Friday, Jeff, was this Minneapolis-based activist network that is now openly advertising jury nullification training, raising new concerns about the integrity of jury trials in the Twin Cities, where essentially these juries would be, acting like activists in terms of the way that they are deciding these particular cases. So I'm curious your thoughts on both of these, the judicial warrants and the jury nullification.
Just to clarify, on the jury nullification, what jury nullification is someone gets on a jury saying that they'll, basically they'll be impartial and uphold the law, knowing that they're going to go against the law because they think it's unjust or wrong and all that. To which my point is, if I'm a federal prosecutor, when I'm doing voir dire with the jury and figuring out who the jury is going to be, I'm going to ask them, are you a supporter of jury nullification? If they say no and they lie, they've lied. So
how would you catch them in that lie? How would that be?
If they come out at the end and it's clearly it's a violation of the law.
We look at it common sense and say there should be a conviction here, and you're not going that route.
Yeah. So I don't. We'll see how that all plays out. There's always something new coming out of that side. But and then the question about the warrants. I mean, I understand if you have a citizen and your law enforcement is coming to get them, you'd need a warrant. But we're talking about picking up a lot of this is non-citizens,
right,
who've come in with, who ignored the process, the legal process, come into the country, and in some cases, and people keep asking, why can't local law enforcement do this or all this? The reason that federal law enforcement is involved is because they've committed crimes in their home countries, and our country has been asked to go get them and send them back to be prosecuted. So I don't know why. Requiring a warrant to go pick up a non-citizen to send them back for trial in another country is going to it's going to absolutely slow down the process.
Yeah. Well, and so much of this is predicated off of the false narratives that have been put forward by the anti-ICE crowd, wherein they have been doing everything they could to lead people to believe that ICE has been out there randomly profiling and arresting individuals that aren't here illegally and haven't done other crimes, when the truth of the matter is the execution of these warrants on individuals that ICE has been arresting has been people that are here in the country illegally, and the majority of them that have committed other crimes that fall under the category that you were just mentioning.
Yeah, and I think part of there's been a little bit of confusion too on the right. There's a lot of discussion about crimes that these people have committed in the U.S., which is they didn't do anything here. Why are we picking them up? It has to do with largely, did they do something in their home in some other country, and that's why the feds are involved with removing them and sending them for prosecution. So just, there's been a lot of kind of confusion, I think, on both sides about what exactly is going on here.
Lawyer extraordinaire Jeff O'Brien. It's always great to have you in studio, my friend. Thank you so much for coming in this morning. Hope you have a great, fantastic rest of the week.